What's up, Bulldogs? All right, today we're going to be dissecting what it is to be an alpha male, why it's attractive to women, and I'm not just going to give you my opinion. I have a woman here, actually, really, yeah, really, guys. And her name is Jenifer Moleski, and she actually has a really good YouTube channel. She's been producing a lot of content that is very in line with a lot of the things that I talk about here on Bulldog Mindset. I feel like it's something that you guys are really going to connect with, and to hear a different perspective on it, I think is really important here. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And Jenifer is not going to pull any punches. She's going to tell it how it is. Some of you guys may go home and cry about it, but you know, that's just life. So welcome, Jenifer.
Thank you. It's very good to be here. You know, I reached out to you a couple months ago because I have been following you for quite a while, and I respect what you have to say. I think I told you in an email that I feel like we're very similar-minded, and maybe it's kind of a selfish thing, but I like to find people that I find similar or that can bolster up and make me reshape my thinking, and you've been one of the people that have done that. So I appreciate that. And like you said, I do have a YouTube channel. It's coming up on a year old. And I think we do tackle similar things where you are trying to reach men. I'm trying to reach women, which hasn't really worked. Truth be told, my subscriber base is mostly men, but it's growing slowly by slowly. About 1% female every month I gain in viewership. So I'm trying to do something for the women of the world on how to smell and find an alpha man, not a fake alpha man,
Right?
An alpha man, and how to be the good partner for that type of human to not compete with. You know, my thinking in starting the YouTube channel was I can't go to YouTube or open a news article if it's not a woman that's bitching about men. I'm like, okay, where's the role model? You have the Kardashians and all these women in power, in control, in media, and they're just telling other girls how bad they have it. Like, oh my God, okay, if you have it bad, woman who makes $50 million a year, then what about these poor girls? No, there has to be another way. There has to be someone out there that can talk about this realistically. Like, ladies, you don't have it bad, and actually you have it really good right now, and you're in a dominant position. Don't act like a tyrant. Come down and use your power for the to equivocate, or to, like I said before, to be the good partner for a man. But that's just not very popular with women. I was thinking earlier today, the reason people watch YouTube content, and you must struggle a little in a sense, if my theory holds up, where people will go to distract them and to be voyeuristic in a life that's not theirs. Like, oh, this is what it's like to be funny, or to get the girls, or to get the guys, or they do it to blame. They want to find other people like, no, you're not doing anything wrong. You're perfect. It's everyone else. So I feel like those are the two big, well, that and news and whatnot, but those are the two big draws for YouTube content creators. But then when you have a channel that's like, actually, you might be the fuck up, people don't necessarily like to hear that always until you're ready, you know?
Yeah. I think there's a mix. I mean, I've got on my Trello board for like video ideas. I have one card that says "call people lazy," because for some reason people like to be called. At least my viewers like to be called lazy. They're just eat that shit up, and those videos do well. I think because, you know, again, it's probably because it's self-filtering. Like, even at the beginning of this video, like, I want to filter people. Right. I want to say, you know, I want people to say, oh, I'll teach you how to be a man. And then they say, huh, yeah, okay. And then they click off, because I don't want those people there. I want the guys that are like, okay, yeah, actually, I want to get all those things in my life. And they're serious. So I think some of it is, you know, but it is hard. I mean, you could appeal to the masses, but if you appeal to the masses, you're just not going to really accomplish much.
No, and you're deluded. And I don't think you're quite authentic if most people, if you are appealing to the masses, the current masses, at least, you know,
So let's talk about, in fact, what we can do is we can kind of look at both sides of it, but let's start off with the guy side, as far as what maybe even to start out, what your opinion, what you think makes an alpha male. I think that's something that a lot of guys are super interested in knowing and getting like the honest truth of it, because I think there's like a thing like, guys always ask women's opinion, and women always tell them things like, oh yeah, have a good personality, be kind, like, and while those things aren't necessarily negative attributes, those aren't really the truthful things that when guys ask what's attractive, they get they get the wrong answers from women. They're not necessarily truthful, or in some of it's just not self-awareness, I think. So I think you've probably got a better grasp on the actual real truth than most women would have. So what would you say?
Well, yeah, and I've been trying to think about this because I want to do a video about my opinion about masculinity. No, about alpha. When I think of alpha, I think when women say, well, just have a good personality and be kind. Okay, but to who? Mm-hmm. And I think there's a weakness in just being kind to everyone. Now, maybe I'm not saying that right. Exhibiting kindness because of your weakness. Mm-hmm. That's not alpha to me. So I'm gonna tell a quick story. And if you disagree with this, I would really like to get your opinion. As well.
I would definitely tell you if I disagree. So
okay. So a long time ago, I went on 2 dates with a guy, and he on the first date, he told me that he was an alpha, and he was super secure. So it was a lot of. Have you ever read a book that's really not well written, and it just tells you what the character is instead of showing you what the character is? Yeah. So he was telling me who he was. And then on the second date, he told me that I could never be friends with any guys because he's the lion of the pride. And he did all the things for me that was red alert for someone who was really, really insecure. Okay. Yeah. So it's like the guy who cries wolf, or the lion. Now, I said to you before, you've talked about alpha being a lion. A real alpha, to me, is kind, sincere, strong, exhibit his confidence to himself first. And he becomes so full of that he can easily exhibit it to the world. I think an alpha won't cry wolf at every other lion that's walking around. If you think that every other lion's going to hurt you, then you're weak, or you believe that you're weak. Well, I would just fucking fight anybody that comes. Okay, so it seems to me, and the equilibrium is off on what your filtration system is for an actual threat. And I think an alpha has so much security that he can keep an eye, and he knows if there's a lion, watch out for that one. That one might be a problem. Or if you're with a girl, like, that's the guy that I don't trust because his filtration system is so strong. That's one of the things. And I also think of stoicism, always stoicism. I think an alpha is a stoic human. He doesn't let outside things bother him unless the bothering is going to propel him into a domain in which he needs to sharpen that blade and get strength in that arena. I don't know if I said that clearly.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that's a good story with, someone trying to say what they are versus being what they are. And just the idea of someone, I always talk about the idea of what is it to be arrogant versus confident. And arrogance is like telling people what you want to believe about yourself, but you don't believe it. It's like, there's people that brag but they are the best, and we know it, and they're saying it because they believe it about themselves, and they truly 100% believe it. But then you can detect when people are saying something about themselves, and most of the time it's not necessary to say something about yourself, but you can detect when people are saying it because they want to convince you so that they can convince themselves. Because if you believe it, right, maybe perhaps in that situation, that story you told, if you believe that guy's alpha because he's telling you, then he can believe it. And that's what he really wants, is to boost his. It's a seeking external validation, right? I think in that case. So okay, so that that makes a lot of sense about that. Yeah,
if I may, I did a video about queens versus princesses, and I said a princess. There's no amount of a man, a great partner, or even a shitty one, only has one, 2 hands to give you applause. But a princess needs an arena. And I think that's the same with the wannabe, the poser alpha guy. He's just trying to get as many people clap for him so he can go home and feel better. But it doesn't work like that.
Okay. And I kind of wanted to drill in on the whole nice kindness thing, right?
Okay.
Because my kind of viewpoint on it, and tell me where you agree or not, is that when you say that as a woman, what you're really indicating is that the guy should show you some level of care, I would say, or that you're special in some way that he doesn't just show to the rest of the world, right? Because if a guy's nice and he just does nice things for everyone, not to say that that's like a bad thing, but because he's doing it out of wanting to please people and to be liked, that's different. But I think because if you look at, when I look at a lot of like romance novels and things like that, right? The main character is usually an alpha guy, and what he's usually kind of dickish to people, and even to the main female character at first. But then he discovers some attribute about her, right? And he's like, oh, I actually really like, she's really a person that I like. And then he's still a dick to everyone else to some degree, not like a total dick, but you know what I mean? Like he just doesn't care. They're not special. But this one girl now, she's super special, and he treats her in that kind way, that that devoted way. Is that an accurate assessment? What would you say?
Well, I think kindness is fine if you spend it on the right people. And I think kind of the same for a woman. I don't really like the being overly nice, just to be considerate. That's one thing, but to go out of your way to do repetitive actions for a woman who might not be worth it. I think it kind of puts you, it's like a job interview. There's a lot of people that go on job interviews and they're just answering questions. And then the interviewer says, well, do you have any questions for me? And they're like, no, man, I just want this fucking job. You don't care how much it pays. You need a job. You just want to get in the door. You're going to say what you need to say in order to get it. Okay. But then there's the person who goes in an interview. They're like, okay, I do need a job, but if I'm going to stay in this company for a long time, I have to ask the right questions. I have to be the right fit. And it's my responsibility to find that right fit, not just suck up for it. So, but once the interview is over, I think that, mutual kindness to each other. And I said in one of my videos, in order to keep someone, you have to be giving daily auditions that you're the most amazing choice, not just to them, but in the world. No one's going to leave the most amazing person. I mean, and there could be somebody that makes way more money, who's way more taller and way more fit. A lot of guys are like, oh, if she's not a child, I'm not, I can't get a girl. But that's not true at all. I think that there's more advantage to being tall, good looking. You are allowed more strikes in the game for women.
Sure.
But if you are confident, that is a turn on. What about this guy? Does he think he's so much better than me? Okay, so I'm going to be on good behavior, and we're going to get to know each other, and then it could advance. And then the key, the door is unlocked, and the attribute is found that I had. But I also think on the opposite end of kindness, so it's giving, where giving is due, and then having the audacity, the balls, the courage to back up and back out when the courage to give a warning that there's certain behavior that's not allowed.
Right, exactly. Yep.
And then following up on that. And that's where I think men and women don't want to go. They want to threaten. Listen, if you treat me like shit, I'm going to leave you. Okay, well, what do you mean like shit? Because everyone has a different thing. And I have a lot of comment section that's like, well, you should just be a basic good human being. Yeah, but like my friendships, my relationships thrive when we're like mean to each other, and not genuinely mean, but like jabs, wit all day. And for some people, that's not allowed. So to have the context, to state the criteria of expectations and then be willing to say, you fucked up right there. If you do it again, really, I'm out. And that can be painful. And a lot of people don't want to do it. But I think that that's the man that builds, and the woman that builds the self-respect needed to find the good partner.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That was long-winded. Sorry.
No, I agree with it. Actually, I have most of the coaching clients that I coach, the guys that I coach, especially on the relationship dynamics. One of the biggest things that I have to coach them on is setting boundaries, and having standards, and then actually following through on it, because that's a big part, like you said. And I even advise them. I say, you say what your boundary is, and then when someone violates the boundary, you tell them that they violated the boundary. You basically say, yeah, do not talk to me like that. Right. And then say, I asked you not to talk to me like that. And then at that point, no threats, no saying I'm going to leave. You just disappear. You just end the conversation. You just go dark for a while, right? Like, you don't even make threats at all, because making threats is that, I feel like that's a slippery slope where it actually shows a lack of power, because if you make a threat, it's better to just take action, right?
Well, define threat. Like, do you mean stating the consequence?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's someone who has to, I mean, for the most part, saying the consequence is like, the consequence is already known, right? If I tell you, do not talk to me like that, then you do it. I don't need to say what the consequence is. You should already know that's my boundary. If you cross the boundary, you should expect bad things are going to happen. I don't need to, like, for me to verbalize it is to actually make a threat. So for example, my, people that work for me, they know pretty much that, hey, when I fire people, I don't give them a warning. I just like, all right, I've told them, I point out things that they've done wrong initially. I don't say, hey, if you keep this up, you're going to get fired or you're on. No, I just say, all right, you're done. No explanation that's necessary. But anyway, I think that's some of the particulars, but the point being that, like, you have to have boundaries and standards, and perhaps there's different ways to execute them. That's how I execute on those. Is I don't have any really, I don't see the need to make threats. I think making threats is pretty empty.
I hadn't considered that. My approach is a little bit different. This is my criteria. If you do this, I can't be with, because I really like the power of a man when I know that he doesn't need me, he wants me.
Right.
I don't want to be a last resort for anyone. I don't even care if I am. I don't want to know it. I need, I can't smell that on you.
Sure.
But for me, I like it when people say, okay, this is what I won't tolerate. And then if they do it, it's, hey, this was an example. Maybe it's habit. Maybe this is just who you think you can be with me. I'm giving you a fair shot. But then if it happens again, but I mean, you and I differ. We pretty much agree by one. You're saying zero chance. I'm saying one. It's pretty close.
Right.
I'm willing to.
And again, I would say it's not necessarily that you're just completely done with someone if they violate your boundary. It's just that my default is just distance. Like, okay, that's it. Like it's sort of like there has to be negative repercussions for an action. It's almost like discipline, right? It's discipline is what it is. And so the discipline is, it's much better to just execute on whatever your discipline is rather than give a warning about it. It's much more effective. So
I like it. Yeah. And then it also shows that I have the courage of conviction. Like, I can stay away from you forever or a week, whatever. I don't care. I'm not dying without you. Are you dying without me? What are you going to do to make this right? Maybe, perhaps. Yeah.
And I think it depends too on the length of the relationship with the person. But on short-term interactions, it's completely zero tolerance. Like, if you are disrespecting me in a short-term interaction, I'm done with you completely. Like, there's no tolerance at all. If it's a longer term relationship, then obviously, I mean, people fuck up, they make mistakes. I make mistakes, right? Everyone makes mistakes, but boundaries have to be clearly stated, and consequences have to occur when those boundaries are stated. Otherwise, it's all just empty threats.
Threats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay. So as an alpha man, you can get more women. Fine. But do you find it more difficult to find the type of partner that you want because your standards are high, because you know your standards? Or do you think that most women are dateable or long-term relationshipable?
That's interesting. Actually, so I just did an interview. They had someone was setting this up. I don't think it's come out yet. We're going to create a new YouTube channel, or this woman that wanted to create this YouTube channel. She had just calling it like Beauty and the Beast, and she had Miss Montana interview me and ask me a very similar question.
Okay.
Right. And essentially what my answer to the question is this, is that if you look at like the bottom 90% of guys, right. And the thing is that the dynamic is definitely different between men and women, right? 80% of women, 90% of women want the top 10% of guys, and they won't settle for anything less than that unless they absolutely have to, right? They want the top 10%. The rest of the guys, the 90%, are trash to them. Not worth the effort. Whereas guys, you know, the bottom 80% of guys will settle for the 80% of girls, right? That their range is much broader, right? So I always point that out because I think that has a lot to do with this dynamic, which is that bottom kind of 80-90% of guys, their selection criteria is mostly based on looks, right? Now, they can actually get what they want, and so they end up settling, and they settle based on looks. But regardless of their standards slip because they can't get the girls that they would like at the looks level. But when they judge between two girls, let's say, they judge entirely on looks. That's the only factor that they look at, right? You know, it's the phenomenon of the virgin who has sex one time and that becomes a marriage partner or a long-term relationship, right? That, like, most guys, that the very first time they have sex, that's the girl that they end up with, right? Or second or third. Like it's very, they're just like, yes, I'm accepted finally, right? That's the bottom tier of guys, like the bottom 80-90%, because they don't have any options, they don't have any choices, but their criteria is based entirely on looks. Now, the top 10% of guys that have access to the 90% of women that the rest of the guys would like to have access to, those guys, because they are able to get women that are of higher tier of looks, at some point it's like imagine if you can go to a restaurant and you could just get a steak dinner every single night, right? You can afford to. At some point you're like, okay, well, I need some other criteria to judge besides just an expensive steak dinner, right? And so to some degree, those guys are going to be more discerning on other properties, and not so. The example that I always use is like a guy that has experience and has access is not restricted in access, right? Which most guys are. He might choose a girl that he would rate and looks wise as a 7 or 7.5 or so over a girl that he would rate looks wise as a 9 or 9.5 because of other attributes. Whereas the guy that doesn't have the access, right, the bottom 90% of guys will always choose a 9.5 girl because he wants the steak dinner because he's never had the steak dinner before, and he thinks that's right. And so that's his only criteria. Whereas a guy that has more range will realize that, okay, yeah, I've had the thing, I've had the supermodel girl or whatever. It's really not that big of a deal anymore, right? He's still going to have some obviously judgment on what guys judge on, which is mostly looks, but he's also going to have a secondary criteria, and that secondary criteria might trump the first criteria, if that makes sense. It's kind of, I don't know if I'm explaining it is good, but that's how I look at it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say the same thing you did, but for a fine dining meal, what's the accoutrements? What's the service like? Okay. So I can get this awesome prime steak, but this other place served me a steak, and then they had 3 different sauces, and my needs were met well beyond my expectations. The knife was really nice. Yeah. So I get that. The accoutrements. I like that. Okay, good.
So I think that's one thing, like, again, I think that it's because, maybe it's helpful for you with your channel as far as women trying to figure out how can they get the alpha guy, and, because like I said, 89% of women want the top 10% of guys, and they don't want anything less than that. And so, but those guys have access. So, they're not in the situation of the bottom 80% of guys where, any girl that shows interest in them, they're going to be interested back. So that's where it becomes sort of this complicated game of like, how can you attract those guys? And it's it's a matter, there is a looks criteria, of course there is,
Sure.
but then it's a matter of what are these other attributes, and that's where having, I think, the confidence and being feminine, I think, is really probably the key there, right? The more feminine that a girl is, the, you know, that's going to be big bonus points, because a guy that feels like, oh, all right, this woman is making me feel like the man, making me feel like the lion, making me feel like the king, that's, you know, that's the highest selection criteria. In fact, when I coach guys that are in their 30s or so and they're looking for kind of long-term stuff, I say, look, this is the biggest criteria that you're going to look for. She treats you like a king. Because every other piece of criteria, like she's hot, she's good in bed, that's fine, those are great things. But ultimately, when things start to fizzle down a little bit, like if she treats you like a king, it's going to keep the spark for a longer period of time, and ultimately your life satisfaction will be much higher overall. And so that's a piece of criteria that I think guys that have options and are aware of their options look for.
I like your coaching because it's like is it the chicken or the egg first? So yes, you want a woman who treats you like a king, but if you're a bitch, you're not going to be treated like a king. Nor would you ever respect a woman who would treat you like that, because you kind of know that you're not even of that value yet. So to create the man that you want to be will attract the woman who's going to bend the knee to that strength. You know?
Exactly.
People will comment on that last one because I said bend the knee. There's some jokes in there.
Yeah, I guess either way. but that's the reality of the situation. It's I mean, it's one thing to, and it doesn't, and that's, I think that's why the mainstream feminist narrative is so destructive. Is like there's nothing wrong with that. You know, that's what women want to submit to a guy that is dominant and they feel safe with. And men want a woman that will do that. Not someone who will just be a pushover and submit to anyone, but who recognizes their strength and their value and is willing to, and that they're special in that way. And so
and my opinion on the feminist movement, if you don't mind, I'm going to insert this, is okay. I think that women innately want to feel small. Okay, we'll say size, we'll say versus strength. Someone who they would like a partner who is stronger, a king, we'll call it. But since modern feminism has taught women how to compete with men, and they are at the top now, most women, or they try to act like it doesn't fit the innate narrative of being a female. So they have to, in some way, cry weakness or oppression or victim status, because they don't have one man who they can be submissive to. They are in the opposite role, which is, well, and they're not even very good at leaders. They're rather tyrannical. So that puts them in a place of a lot of unhappiness and confusion, and it's a spiral effect. And I think that's what feminism is really, or why feminism is really destructive to women and men and society and children and everything.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really, I think that the way I look at it is the goal of it is to teach women to become men, and then at the same time decrying men for being toxic. So it's like you're trying to like become the thing that you're saying is bad, but and doing not as good of a job of it because you're not biologically equipped to be that. But you know, I think there is a conflict though, because women have to. You know, today it's expected in the workforce, right, to be successful in the workforce. You have to learn some masculinity as a woman to be able to thrive and fight in that place. So I understand. It's just like it's a matter. I think it's difficult because it's a matter of like, can you leave that at the office and then come home? Can you be feminine while still being able to? And we all have to kind of shift between our feminine and masculine, right? I mean, if I was just 100% in masculine, I wouldn't be having these conversations. I wouldn't be reaching out and helping people. I have to kind of reach into that aspect of me to be able to be kind of, you know, what I'm doing here with my YouTube channel is to some degree you could call it nurturing, right? So I have to be able to, but you know, I would be 90% on the masculine side and maybe 10% on the feminine. Or I think women have to make that balance a little bit, especially if they're career women, right? To make that balance is really, really difficult, and then you get kind of stuck in that zone because you're used to having to be that. So I think it's really difficult position, but feminism has made it made it so, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a lot of things that have made it so, and here we are.
Yeah.
And I don't really know the way out. Which is one of the reasons why I really like you, because you talk about creating an army. Okay. So I really understand that. And I think about I'm going to talk a little shit, and not about anyone specifically, but there are some YouTube channels who I think of, in The Wizard of Oz, there's the monkeys and they just do anything that the queen wants them to.
Right.
I think there's a lot of men and women, fine, they're different, but men out there who are those monkeys, and they're not strong. They're flying in packs, and they're raiding little villages, and they're stealing food from Dorothy. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And then there's people who are trying to create strong human beings. 20% women, fine, okay. What's their strength look like versus men? I don't know, but that's what you're doing. And I think that you're probably pretty big on stoicism and controlling what you can. And
absolutely, the whole Bulldog Mindset philosophy is completely based on stoicism. That's the core of it, because that is the only way to live your life. There's no other life philosophy that makes sense, right? I mean, there's nothing that you can really come up with an argument against stoicism, right? To be impervious to external influence is so important, right? To be able to to go through the waves of life and be unaffected, like to as much as possible to insulate yourself from that. I think there's no argument that can be made against that.
It's amazing how many people I hear try.
Yeah. I mean, the victim mindset is extremely prevalent, right? To blame, because you look at it, your circumstances are what they are.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. And really no one cares either, right? I mean, for the most part, no one gives a fuck. They'll pretend, they'll be like, oh yeah, watch out for I'm not going to say the word of the thing that's going on right now. But people use the shield of, it's all the sick and the elderly and they're just cowards. They're just chickens. It's not that. They're pretending like that's who they want to help, but at any time they can go to Africa and they can build houses, or they could like save thousands of people that are dying by giving up their entire paycheck to do it. But suddenly there's this thing happens and everyone's like, oh no, I'm doing it for the good of humanity, but the rest of your life is not spent serving the good of humanity. So I call bullshit on it. But
it could be some virtue signaling too. Anyway,
okay. I went a little bit off topic there, but
that's okay.
Let's talk a little bit more. So, to go back to the whole like alpha male type of thing, it's kind of funny. I actually don't like the term. I really don't like to use the term alpha male.
Well, it's very spent now.
Yeah.
It's way overused.
But it exists. Like the concept exists. So that's why I use it, because I don't think there's another term that fits it, except to say that bulldogs. But but what is it that is attractive to women about the alpha male? Like, what is the thing that makes it so appealing, and why is it, if you agree or not, but why is it that 90% of women want the top 10% of guys and won't accept anything less?
Okay, so I might get some pushback on this, but I think that women want power. Okay. The first thing that is powerful is appearance and strength. Okay. That's easy. Like I said, maybe a woman will give a man indefinite strikes or 3 strikes more than an unattractive man, or a man who's not super tall and super athletic. But I think the key word is power. So I think that, there's a lot of really unattractive male comedians and they're doing fine. Because they have a power over an audience, and that's captivating to a woman. It's very dazzling to, if I can get that person who can command them through humor, that says something about me, because he's seeing the attributes in me and I've gotten his attention, even though I'm competing with a lot of things. Okay. So it could be looks. The thing with looks is a lot of men could really shape up, no problem. And I don't mean shape necessarily, although I could by just getting stronger or losing weight, but just taking care of teeth and just washing your face. I'm telling you, if you wash your face really good, you look better. Yeah. Shaping, sculpting the makeup that men have, which is facial hair. Humor, high intelligence. If a woman who is intelligent, who likes to have deep conversations, here's you out in public talking on very deep things in a very articulate and calm way. I remember I went to an anarchy meeting a couple years ago. I can't remember the exact premise, but there was a guy outside, not that good looking, I'll tell you. And he just did this one action. He was talking to someone, and the man that he was talking to was practically hyperventilating because anarchy is so stupid. And he was just so mad that this anarchist wasn't a statist. And the anarchist just like, he was just so casual about it, but he kind of watched this guy have a fit. Yeah. And he calmly just said he laid some truth bombs or things that I respected, or even if I didn't respect, the manner in which he stated them was so attractive. I had a crush on this guy for like a year after that. So the confidence in the realm that one is interested in is powerful.
Right.
So yeah, there's 10% of the population, and I would say maybe to really get specific, 10% of the population that is tall, fit, good looking, smart, charming, funny, like all the things. But I think most women want power in some of the things, in the things that they find important. And the good news, now you said before that most men want like pretty is important. That's kind of bad news for girls, except for that most men think that most women are pretty. But to be a very striking woman, you either are or you're not. So that's kind of bad news for women. The good news for men is that you can cultivate anything that you're interested in and then show it to the world. Right. Don't be really smart or really funny and stay at home and be like, oh, I'm smart and funny. No, get out in front of women every week, and then you will start to see that you are drawing. Women are going to come up and just going to talk to you and be nice to you. And then you're going to start to have a pick. And that's what I think about alpha. Not alpha, but strength. And maybe alpha is total balance of supremacy in all realms, but I just don't think it's needed to get a awesome chick.
Right. It's just, but it's just the thing, the biggest selection criteria, right? Because like you said, you equated it to power. I think I would equate it to status. I see power and status as pretty much the same thing. If you have, that's what like one of the things that, I think there's a huge thing in the men's community about the whole looks is everything, black pill type of guys that just think, okay, looks, and I, my whole argument and, because you used a comedian, I think that's a good example, but I've always said to guys like, hey, if you go into a nightclub and there's like a guy that's a model, like Chad to the max, completely chiseled features, completely, model, literally a model. But then some famous rock star comes in, Kiss, whatever, but like maybe he's a little bit dated, but some famous rock star who's not very good looking at all, right? Who's like, you would rate him like a 6 or so, like not ugly, but average looking. The rock star, like all the girls are going to forget about the model dude, and they're going to go after the rock star guy, because rock star is the highest status that you can possibly be, perhaps, right? Yeah. Somewhere around there, or famous actor or comedian, right? But am I accurately portraying that, or?
Well, yes. And I'll tell you another story. In my late teens, early 20s, I remember I was at this dance club and this guy walked in. I remember his nickname was Static, and Static was not an attractive man. I'd never seen him before. But when he walked in, and I'm really not like a 4, okay? And he walks in, and I swear to God, it was probably, in fact, in the past couple of days, I was trying to think of how many people, because I didn't want to be hyperbolic. 50 to 100 people flocked around him and were like, hey, Stan, I tried to like touch him. It was so weird. And I said to my friend, Mrs. Men and Women, like, what is going on over there? Right. And they said, oh, that's whatever. Everyone likes him. I can't remember maybe he sold drugs. I actually don't know. But I remember thinking that whole night, well, I'm not going to go and try to talk to him, but if I do, that'd be cool. Why? Right, because it was social proof, of that. And men were honored to be around him too. This is the most interesting thing I've really ever seen in a normal life event. But yeah, so, and I think if you can get some social proof from the people around you, that's also cultivating a community. And friends are really sexy. because people that have other amazing people thinking that they're amazing, that gives the credit to other people.
Exactly.
It's just I want to use a money metaphor here, but it's just showing your worth. You know, walking around with gold or walking around with coal. Some people have coal as friends, not sexy. But if you have coal as friends, you probably are coal yourself. So what can we move into? Copper, silver? Can we get you to gold? Right. So that's my
that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I always tell guys that I'm coaching is that the very first thing when you're like at a bar or something and you start talking to a girl, the very first question she's gonna ask you within the first 5 minutes is going to be, where are your friends? Right? That's like always the question, because it's so important. Because it's like, okay, well, you know, is this guy here alone? Is he a loser? Is he, what's going on?
Yeah.
So, okay, so then definitely the power aspect of that. So what can guys do? I mean, maybe this is a good one, because I think most guys probably don't feel like they're so my contention is that most guys can be in that top 10% of guys, right?
I agree.
So what can they do to get there? I think a lot of guys think that they can't be. They're like, oh, well, it's just Chad genetics. You got to have the Chad genetics.
Yeah, but those are easy. Those are the imps. Like, we're not talking to them anyway. I think a man that wants to be in the top and who knows that he can, okay. I get nervous before doing interviews. Like before I came here, I get nervous. I get sweaty and I just feel weird.
Just have a little bit of scotch.
That's really good advice, but I didn't today. But I said to myself, okay, Moleski, what could you do to not get nervous anymore? The answer is do this every day.
Right, that's true.
Every day. Reach out to people and have good interviews, have bad ones, until you're like, whatever. I have so many in the books, it doesn't even matter anymore. I've gotten so good at it, or I've gotten so bad at it that I know where to sharpen, where my skill set is low. So exposure, I would say. Expose yourself to uncomfortable things, not once. Because if you do it once, you're going to go home and then you're just going to bury yourself in shame or think about what went wrong. But go out again and again and again. And I always say on my YouTube channel, I talk about my meetup. Okay, so I host a meetup I have for 3 years every Tuesday, pretty much without fail. It's really good for, it started with 5 people and now I kind of handed it over, but it's 12 to 16. And at its peak, it was like 30 people every day, 30 people that counted on it. And the friendships and the relationships that have started because of that, but it was exposure. And almost everyone in that meetup has contacted me in some way saying, thank you for creating that because it changed my life. I was nervous. I was in a bad spot. I was depressed. And then I found people to be familiar with every day or every week. And that exposure made me a little bit more confident. And then the spiral begins in a good way. So exposure. And then I don't think that there's a certain thing to focus on. I think it is to your own self, be true, know thyself. What are you interested in? Really? Is it math? Okay. Khan Academy, here I come. And then going to math competitions or talking about math. And you can talk. I live by the Broadmoor. That's one of the best resorts in the world. And they just canceled the Space Symposium. But I remember a couple of years ago being like, oh, the Space Symposium, I'm going to go and just talk to people about math. I don't know anything about it, but people, because I can mingle, were able to talk to me. That was exposure for someone who's into that. So I would just say, if you're into fighting, get into jujitsu and spar and get to know people. And that's it. And then get in front of other humans. I think I just said the same thing for 5 minutes. No,
that's so exposure. I mean, getting and the right kind of exposure, right? I just saw a video from a guy on YouTube. I guess I'll just say his name, LFA, because I like some of his stuff, but some of the stuff I disagree with. But he was talking about how exposure therapy doesn't work, and he was telling guys, he's like, look for choosing signals and only approach the girls that, otherwise you're gonna approach these girls and they're gonna reject you, and then you're gonna just think worse about yourself. And I had to disagree with him, because I just had a coaching client last night that I was telling him, and I was like, look, dude, I was like, when you go up and we're gonna get some exposure therapy, don't go up to girls and hope like don't make your expectation of a win being that you have a positive outcome, like get a phone number or go on a date, whatever. Have your expectation of a win be you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, because you can win 100% of the time there, and every single interaction gives you a level up. You're gaining experience. You're going to level up, guaranteed, right? If your expectation is that it will go well and that's your win, then you're going to 90% of the time you're going to have a bad outcome. But if your outcome is, like you said, exposure, like I want to put myself in a difficult situation, like you said with the interview, I think that's a good one. Is it's like, if you're like, okay, the reason why I'm doing all these interviews is not because I want to have like a stellar performance, it's because I want to make it so that I'm better at doing this, I'm more resilient to the fear of this and the nervousness. Then every single time you do it, you've got a win under the belt, because you've made it yourself that much stronger in that respect.
Maybe that's it. Fear eradication. Figure out what you need to do to eradicate your fear, and then do it. And you know, if you go up to 20 women with the expectation that you're just going to say hi or make them laugh or whatever, one time it's going to happen. It's just going to like flow a little bit easier, and that's really attractive to women. They're like, oh, I think he's just hanging out with me, you know. And then there's no threat. I don't have to go, well, I don't think I'd want to date him because he looks like this, or it's just more calm. And then 3 hours later, you've both had a really good time, and she says, was there any way you were going to ask me for my number, because I think I'd like that. It will happen.
Right.
Some guys don't want to do that. Fine. But there is a path. And if you are interested, I'd say that is a really great path. So I'm with you in being against his advice.
Okay. So overcoming fear. I like that. I think that's a good to be fearless. Again, looking at it, an attribute of a lion, right? Like,
wait. Okay. I think I need to be a little bit more clear with my words. I'm all for fear. Because courage only comes when you're overcoming fear.
100%, yeah.
But to not let it drive you, to not make decisions based on fear, as if that's the winning decision. Well, I'm not going to talk to a girl because, okay, then you're making a decision based on fear. Oh, good for you. Oh, I bet that feels good. You can really sleep well at night by knowing subconsciously that you're letting all your fear drive you away from what you probably want.
Right.
I don't think that's powerful. I don't think that's courageous. I don't think that's smart. I don't think that's strong. I don't think it's stoic. I don't think it's masculine. I don't think it's alpha.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So having the fear and acting in spite of it. What's that book called? Feel the fear, do it anyway. So,
okay. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that's huge, because one of the things is that you'll probably always have fear.
Yes. Thank God.
Exercise courage.
Yeah. And that can drive you to think about the self-esteem that you would get from, okay, so talking to women is pretty spooky until it's not. And then you're like, okay. Oh, I know what else would scare me. I'm going to go do that thing, right. Until you really are this well-rounded person. One day you can look in the mirror and be like, dude, I don't know exactly when this came about, but I am the shit.
That's interesting. Yeah. I think that I was going to ask for some other kind of attributes that you could say that would help a guy that wanted to be in that top 10% and become more alpha. But honestly, I think just being just doing what you just said there, just going after facing your fears and building that courage, that will work just by itself, because you'll be expanding into all these different areas. You'll become a stronger person. You'll become more resilient, right? You'll become more successful by doing that, and you'll develop great social skills, because I think most people have decent social skills. It's just that their fear of looking like an idiot makes them blubber and reconsider what they're saying, or get up in their head instead of just being themselves. And
it's the same thing. It's the same reason why you wouldn't go to the gym, because you're small. Like, you have the potential, but I can't really lift that much and I'm kind of fat, so I'm not going to go. Okay, well, what is that going to perpetuate? Strength? No.
Right.
So it's the same thing. Flexing. I'm going to go out there and show my little weak muscles, but they're going to get stronger.
Yeah.
I promise. That's the way of it. I don't think anything that you or I say is against natural law, right. Destruction, creation. I think it all. Do you want to destroy or produce or create yourself? and what decisions will destroy you or will create you.
Well, and I think that's the biggest resistance that people have is they're trying to fight natural law. And mine viewpoint has always been like, it is what it is, right? The MGTOW guys really are not big fans of me, and the feminists aren't either. And because I see them both as just trying to fight what the reality of the situation is. It's kind of having the victim mindset. It's like, okay, you know what? Hey, if this is a situation, if this is, I understand, some of these guys, you want to be this kind of guy, but if you want, this is how women operate in this world. And if you want to have what you want in life, you're going to have to adopt to what the game is. You can't decide that it's unfair. It's an unfair game. Life is an unfair game, but there's no need to be upset or angry about it. You can just, you just got to play it, and you just have to figure out what is the strategy that's going to give you the best option in life. And I think a lot of people want to fight against that and cry that it's unfair.
Well, yeah. So it's play it or don't. And then I would be even more snarky and say, play it or watch videos every day that tell you why you shouldn't play it. Right. And that's what makes you strong and special.
And even if you say you're not playing it, you're just playing it. You're just staying on square one of like your turn is still going. It's still your turn. You're just passing the turn. Like you're still getting scored, and it's not good. So
yeah. Well, especially if that's I don't know. People, I think fight. Yes. What was I going to say? That you came up with the game. Oh yeah. There's a saying. It's I'm going to not say it well, but it's something like a tree is seen very differently from the lumberjack compared to the environmentalist. So the tree is just the tree.
Right.
It's just doing it. It doesn't even care about you or you. But the person who just cares about the environment is going to be very mad at the lumberjack. And the lumberjack is like, dude, I just want to eat. So it's a thing in how you envision it. The other thing, I think it was a guy named Osho that said, the man who hates wealth or rich people is as tied to money as the man who loves wealth.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You're just in a lust with it, but in which way? So don't fool yourself by thinking because you are obsessing about hating relationships that you're not engaging just as much as you would be in trying to cultivate a relationship.
Exactly. Yep. I agree 100%. I think guys, go and subscribe to Jenifer Moleski's channel. Actually, I should be saying ladies, go and subscribe, because I know you're watching. Go subscribe. She's got a lot of really good stuff. As I was looking at Jenifer's stuff, I was like, we got to do something here because she's got some really good content and I think it'll be valuable. Just getting the female perspective, I think is really, really valuable, even if it's a female perspective talking to other females, because then you see the what's going on and what they're like. I think one of the most beneficial things that you can learn, guys, is to know what women are struggling with as far as men and dating and finding guys and dealing with that thing, because then you can understand exactly what it is that what you need to be or how you need to actually present yourself that solves some of those problems for them. So
I have nothing to add before we wrap it up. I have enjoyed this very much. Thank you for allowing me to shoot the breeze with you for a good 45 minutes, hour. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed it. That's it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jenifer.
Cool. Have a good one.